Once again, you are listening to the Rational Response Squad. I am Brian Sapient.
I am Rick Hawkins.
I'm Kelly. I'm 78.
And I'm Razor.
And on the line with us now is a youth minister from Georgia, correct, Jay? Is it Georgia?
That's right, man.
Okay.
Yeah, Greenville, Georgia.
All righty. And you wrote to us on MySpace, and we had a little dialogue back and forth, and some of the argument that you've given us are somewhat familiar to us, but I figured we'd get you on the show and give you a chance to convey your arguments to the general public, and maybe you can convince some people, and maybe we can do the same on the other side.
Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, no problem.
Appreciate it. It just kind of caught my attention. I think I got a bulletin, just kind of a random bulletin from the Rational Response Squad several months ago now. $666 or something like that for anyone who can prove the existence of God or Jesus Christ. And obviously caught my attention. And I guess I should be clear, I wasn't looking for $666. So I'm cool financially. Everything's great there. What caught my attention was because the frame of mind where I'm working from is that I don't have to prove the existence of God. The existence of God is all around us. The common way of explaining that is what's called the watchmaker theory.
Well, I'm curious, before you go too far, if the existence of God is all around us, then wouldn't it be readily easy to prove the existence of God?
Yeah, I think it is. I think that there are certain people that I might come into contact with, or that someone else might come into contact with, who do not accept to prove the existence of God. I mean, there are people, for example, we're huge college football fans down here, and there a lot of times there's maybe a certain team that's dominant, and just because someone doesn't like that certain team, we refuse to accept their dominance. Now, obviously, every illustration is faulty, but maybe that kind of gives you a point of the existence of God is all around us, and people are aware of the existence of God. And I think the argument I made to you was that your own conscience, that our conscience, gives testimony to the fact of the existence of God, but it's whether or not we want to accept that, whether or not we want to listen to that. The frame of mind I was coming from was, if you're walking on the beach and you see a perfectly working Rolex watch on the beach, then no one in their right mind would say, man, what a beautiful watch, man. It is amazing how over the course of time, sand and salt water and dead fish bones and whatever else all came together to form this perfectly working Rolex watch. That is amazing. No, what we would say is, or we may not say it, but what we would know is if we found this Rolex watch, we would say there is a watchmaker.
And do you know why that's so? Do you know why that's so?
Yeah, because creation is the number one testimony for a creator. The same is true for
I don't believe that's accurate. I would say that the reason why we know that's so is because we can go to watch factories and see watches being made. So no rational person would say that a watch or a Coke can or a car or whatever object you want to choose was created by sand and wind and water, because people who are informed and know that we can go to these factories and witness the item being made. However, we can't do the same thing with universes. We can't go to a universe factory and see a universe being created. Well, we can't know for sure that a universe must have had a creator. But let's pretend for a moment that we do know for sure that a universe had to have a creator. Then so now everything must have a creator. So who created the creator?
See, that's where we come to the point of where just because I'm not able to say, here you go, A subpoint 1-2, B subpoint 1-2, C subpoint 1-2, just because I can't do that does not mean that something doesn't exist. Because my natural response, and you know this response, you've heard it before, I'm sure you've had countless other youth ministers and Christians and so forth on your show who responded to this question and say, well, God has no beginning. And to that, you probably laugh and scoff and that sort of thing, and that's cool. I understand that. But I
don't laugh and scoff, but
yeah, we definitely don't scoff.
Yeah,
okay.
but
I didn't mean to be judgmental. What I'm saying is I understand that you've heard that, and I understand that it doesn't make sense. And my response is, and please don't misunderstand me. Mm-hmm. When I responded to the blog, and I recognize the fact that essentially I contacted you all first, but when I responded to the blog, in no way was I trying to come out with some kind of arrogance and saying, well, boy, these silly little atheists, they just don't get it. Never was that my intention. But what I was saying is because I've experienced the power of God in my life, and I've got to share that. And I just couldn't help but respond. And my answer is because God has no beginning. And just because we cannot explain something, just because we're not able to wrap our minds around something, does not mean that it does not exist. In fact,
You know what's interesting, Jay? Let's pause right there. Jay, let's pause right there. Let's pause right there.
Okay.
You're saying just because we can't explain something doesn't mean it doesn't exist, and that's interesting because you are very smart there. Okay, because that's common philosophy. It's called the argument from ignorance. All right, that just because you don't have an answer for it, you can't explain it away with another answer that you don't understand. And in fact, it's kind of ironic because saying that God existed forever, saying that God created the universe, is actually using the argument from ignorance while you're using understanding of the argument from ignorance to explain your belief. Okay. See, the reality is that if God could have existed forever, it's just as likely and plausible, since we don't have evidence of a God, that the universe existed forever. It's very possible that the universe just simply existed forever. It didn't need a creator, okay? But by your own logic, if the universe needed a creator because everything needs a creator, then the creator needed a creator. You see the problems here?
No, because I wasn't allowed to finish that frame of thought. But
well, you're saying so many things that aren't really logical that I've got to stop you at some point, man. I mean, I'm sorry.
That's fine, I understand.
Or else we'll just go through all kinds of points that don't make any sense and get to one at the end. I mean, let me stop you as we go along, and we'll address each one.
No problem, man. That's cool. But what I was getting to was the fact that, in my belief, God is supreme, and God is over all things, and there's nothing beyond Him. And the fact that, for example, I see a lot of insufficiencies in the universe. I believe that God created a perfect universe, and I believe that God created man perfect with His intention. I believe that sin came in and ruined that, kind of stirred things up and shook things up.
We're getting way off topic. Let's go back, okay? You were talking about how God didn't need a creator because He was infinite, and then you said that we can't understand how He was infinite. And so what I'm saying is, do you see how it's possible that the universe could be infinite, and we currently don't understand how the universe could be infinite?
I see where it's possible for you to come back with that response. I totally understand that. So the statement you made a few minutes ago was, let's assume for a minute that God does exist. So let me throw that argument to you.
Okay, sure.
Blaise Pascal, his argument is called Pascal's wager. And sure, probably you've heard this before. He told his friends who were atheists or who chose not to believe in God, look, if I'm wrong for being a Christian, for following God, at the end of my life, what have I missed? His response was maybe a few parties and maybe the acceptance of man, a little bit of popularity. He says, if I'm right, which I believe I am, which I know I am, and at the end of your life, if I'm right, what have you missed? And what have you lost? Here's my question to you.
Go ahead.
I can sit here and we can talk for 2 hours, and that's cool. And I can talk to you about oranges and how many nerve endings are in the eye and how it's completely weird that would just happen and come into being.
Okay, sure.
And you would say, well, it's completely weird that God has no beginning. And we could just go back and forth in those circles. But here's what I want. My thing is,
did you have a question in relation to Pascal's wager?
You talking about me?
Yeah, because I had a question in relation to Pascal's wager. So I want to just kind of stick with the topic. You said you had a question right after you gave me Pascal's wager?
Yeah, I had a question, but you can go ahead. Go ahead. Okay,
well, I'm curious. How many religions exist on the planet right now?
I have no clue.
Okay, would you say more than Christianity?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so is it possible that there are other gods that require you to believe in their existence in order to get into eternal blissful heaven?
Yeah, sure there are.
Okay,
no other true gods. But
no, that's fine. It has nothing to do with true. Okay, because Pascal's wager has nothing to do with God being true. So then you'd admit that Pascal's wager is completely flawed because if a Muslim could easily say to you, what have you got to lose by believing in their God? Okay, the worst that could happen at the end of your life is you will have lived a good life, maybe missed a few parties. So clearly you should believe in the Muslim God.
Yeah, see, I'm not using Pascal's wager as an end-all or as a catch-all. I'm using it as a support.
That's
to
fine.
Get to my question.
But I'm also showing you how it's completely fallacious and how it does nothing to support the argument.
Cool, no problem with that.
Do you understand why though?
Well, here's my question. I'm using that as a support to get to this question.
Okay, fine. Go ahead.
Starting off from the foundation of assume with me that God exist. And
Okay.
so my question is, by God's standard, are you a good person?
I don't see. You're going to get off. This isn't the Pascal's wager anymore. Okay.
I know, because
this
I'm
is now
telling you
this
that,
is now an appeal to, if I believe that God exists, I'm going to now accept the book, the Bible, and use, Ray Comfort's argument as to, how I get into heaven.
that's why I'm here. I mean, that's my deal. So if,
Okay, so
that's fine. But
Here's my thing. You guys have heard all the arguments, and I could get Ravi Zacharias, or I could get some intelligent genius Christian, and these guys I read all the time, and get on here, and still it would be talking in circles, and that's okay. That is great. I'm glad you're doing what you do. I was a broadcasting major. I appreciate the radio thing. And
it's interesting. It's interesting though that you say that it'd be talking in circles. It wouldn't be talking in circles if you could admit that what you just said was fallacious. We would both come to a common ground, and the circle would end. I mean, Pascal's wager is false. It's phony, and I haven't even gotten on to a second or a third or a fourth point as to why we can't get through the first one, which is
okay. Well,
I'll let you say all
the reasons why his argument is fallacious, and then when you're done, I'll say, well, okay, that's cool, but that's not what I came on here to prove. I was just using it as support, and then I'll continue asking.
Okay, so but what you just did was you just admitted that you were closed-minded, because you said I could present arguments that show Pascal's wager fallacious, but yet you won't accept them. When as soon as I'm done, you'll just move on to why you gave Pascal's wager and use it to continuously support your argument.
Closed mind is an interesting statement to make, because generally what happens in our culture today is whenever someone gives a viewpoint that another person does not agree with and the other person chooses not to accept, then what happens? They're called closed-minded.
No.
That's great.
No.
I can accept that.
No.
Christianity's always
That's
been
not
called
true.
closed-minded.
That's not true. Okay, no.
Jesus Christ said, I am the way to the Father. No man gets to the Father but by me. To many people, that's closed-minded. That's okay.
No.
My question
a closed-minded person says that they can't be wrong. Okay, that's basically in essence what you said. All right,
no,
that's
I never
different.
said I can't be wrong. I'm saying that God cannot be wrong.
Okay, well,
but you're
claiming that God exists.
You're claiming with absolute affirmity that something you're stating is absolutely correct.
In order for you to be able to admit that you're open-minded, you must be able to accept the possibility that you could be wrong and that you're willing to change your position when enough evidence presents itself. I basically told you I'm willing to give you enough evidence to present to you how your position is wrong. You in turn said that when I was done doing that, you would not accept my position and you would go on to show me why you still hold your position to be true, even though I've completely demolished it.
That's cool. You're misunderstanding me, though, because I can totally live with being closed-minded. There's no problem with that. I can go to sleep tonight.
There's a fundamental difference between you and I. Even if I believe, you see, when I did believe in a God, I was open-minded. That's why I was able to accept the possibility that I was wrong when it happened, when I realized that I was wrong. As a closed-minded person, you're right. I would continuously believe in whatever I hold to be true, even when enough evidence presents itself to show otherwise.
I'll give you another illustration that just comes from where I'm thinking. And
all right, so we're going to get off of Pascal's wager and how I can prove it fallacious. So let's go ahead and move on.
Okay, I'll tell you what. Just go on with that.
No. We'll just get off it because I'm basically, you're telling me ahead of time that I'm going to be talking to a wall. You're telling me ahead of time that even if I proved it wrong, you would not accept it.
Yeah, I am. I'm telling you that there's nothing you can say to change my mind.
And you are demonstrating for me the reason why I have this radio show. You're demonstrating to me the irrationality of theism and what it does to the human mind. It's putting you in a position where you are unable to accept the reality of something, even when the evidence to the reality of that issue presents itself.
That's cool, man. I'm glad to be an exhibit on your show, man. I'm proud.
Okay,
I'll tell you, man.
Go ahead. Feel free to move on. My guys are going to have questions in a few minutes, but go ahead. Feel free to move on to your next point.
I'm just telling you, man, if I'm in a house and it's on fire, someone can tell me all they want to. Look, Jay, the house isn't on fire. Everything's cool. It's okay. I'm believing it. I believe it. I don't have to be open-minded to someone who doesn't believe in fire or someone.
Yeah, but you would be believing that on the basis of the evidence of the fire, the smoke, the heat, all of the things. So you're using evidence. You're using concrete evidence.
Keep in mind, evidence
exactly. I'm believing it on evidence, just as I believe God exists on evidence. For example, we had a kid born a month ago, or our firstborn child, and again, going back to the first statement I started off with, that creation proves the existence of a creator. And in our email correspondence, you came back and said, well, what if the creator is a Snorf widget or whatever it is. And that's okay. But in your own response there, you're proving to me, you're saying that you believe there is a God. I believe that however many people are in this room that I'm talking to believes that your conscience tells you that there is a God. It's whether or not you choose to listen and you choose that that is the God of the Bible. I believe that's the God of the Bible. What I read in the Bible is enough evidence for me. What I see in creation, general revelation, is enough evidence for me that the sun rose up this morning, is the order in the universe, is enough evidence for me of God. And when I first responded to you, nowhere in my agenda did I ever expect, well, I'm going to change these atheists' minds, because I knew that probably wasn't going to happen.
But of course, the reality is you're supposed to be trying to do that, right?
Yeah. My desire, though, is to appeal to your conscience and to tell you that your conscience, your own conscience, tells you that God exists. And my desire is, well,
I would implore you to just remove that argument from your repertoire. It was at that point when, if you remember in our email exchange, I believe you mentioned about arrogance earlier. That was the most arrogant argument that you made, was the one that you claimed to know what I believe to be true or not true. Okay. When in reality, I was telling you the complete opposite. You were telling me how I felt. You were telling me that I believed in a God and that I denied his existence. And, I can tell you, and whether you want to trust us or not, that we lack belief in a God's existence because there is enough evidence to prove him to us. Everybody in this room grew up a believer. Okay. We were all believers. We were happy in our belief. In fact, I've given people, as a believer, and so is Rook, I know, given people the same arguments you're giving us right now. Okay. I tried to convert my father. I tried to save him. Okay. We understand where you're coming from. And at the same time, we recognize that, we stopped believing because there was not enough evidence. All right. This has nothing to do with our conscience telling us about God or anything like that. If our conscience told us that God exists, we'd believe that God exists. All right. But our conscience tells us that we need to be honest with ourselves. Okay. And honest with ourselves, and reality shows us that we don't have evidence for a God. The evidence that we have is the same evidence. All of the evidence you've presented for God is evidence for a Snarf widget if you want to say that God exists. Okay. The sun coming up this morning, I see it as evidence of the Snarf widget. The clouds rolling over our skies, evidence of Snarf widget. And you can't prove to me that there is any difference between claiming that it's a Snarf widget and claiming that it's God. There is no difference at all. None.
Well, I understand where you're coming from, and I understand the Snarf widget thing. But again, I'm telling you that my evidence, you talked about evidence a little bit earlier. For some people, I believe that everybody worships a God. For some people, it may be their intellect. For some people, it may be science. For some people, it may be their bodies.
But you're changing the definition of God. I mean, if you want to speak metaphorically, that's fine. I understand.
I'm saying I believe everybody worships a God. I'm telling you that my evidence for God, you talked about evidence, how you have evidence for saying that maybe the universe has always existed. Well, I'm using my evidence. And if you'll be open-minded, I'm telling you that the Bible that I see as God's evidence for his existence, that I believe in, tells me that everybody has the law of God written on their hearts, that their own conscience testifies to them about the word of God. Now, if you see that as closed-minded, if you see that as just typical Southern Baptist,
I don't think we need to address closed-minded anymore. You've already admitted to being closed-minded.
That's cool. Yeah, I'm cool with that. I'm just saying, from my evidence, you talked about evidence, but from my evidence, I'm telling you that the law of God is written on your hearts. And I believe the Bible is clear. I believe the Bible is true, and I believe it's clear. There's coming a time when you stand before God, when you will stand before God. And my desire, you can call it sticking my nose where it doesn't belong, being nosy, being stupid, being closed-minded, being arrogant. That's okay. I can live with that. But my desire is that you realize that there's coming a time when you stand before God. And if you lean on your own intellect, if you lean on what you have discovered,
Jay, if we realize that, we would believe in God. Do you see how dangerous it is to do what we're doing if your God is true? The God that we grew up believing in?
Yeah.
Where will we end up?
That's exactly why I'm calling you.
Okay. So now maybe use that as a little bit of evidence for yourself that we're being honest. Okay. Would any person in the right mind, okay, commit themselves to hell?
I'm not denying. I would say you're being sincere. Plenty of people are sincere and they're just wrong. I mean, there have been good people, there have been dictators, there have been medium people who have been very sincere about what they do.
Okay, wait a sec, but there's two separate things now. If we're sincere, then how do we know that God exists, but we just deny him? If we're sincere, then we're obviously not doing that, because being sincere, we're saying we don't believe in God, and that's the truth. It's not written on our hearts, and it's not in our conscience. We can't be both. We can't be sincere and also have it written on our hearts that and know that God exists, but just deny it.
Question, and I'm not comparing the two, so please don't make that assumption. Was Hitler sincere?
Hitler was a Christian.
I don't know him. I don't know him like that. What's the point anyway?
A lot of people think they're right, and a lot of people are sincere because they think they're right. And sure, you can say, well, you think you're right, and maybe that makes you sincere. But a lot of people think they're right, and that makes them sincere in what they do and sincere in their beliefs, and they're still wrong. And my desire is to help you to understand. And I realize that maybe I'll never do that, but I'm going to go down, crash and burn, fight, whatever. I'll be the biggest idiot on MySpace. That's cool. I'll live with that.
But you realize that you just admitted that there's a chance that you're wrong.
How's that?
Well, you just said a lot of people think they've been sincere and they've been wrong. So you think you're sincere and maybe you're wrong.
No, because what I hold to as truth is not based on my feelings or my sincerity. It's based on the existence of God.
You're projecting right now. It's funny. You're projecting right now because everything that you do hold to be true is only based on your feelings. It is not based on evidence at all. Okay, there's no scientifically falsifiable test, nothing evidence related that can prove the existence of God. All right? There is, however, plenty of evidence to show that people just simply believe what makes them feel good. Okay? And you're projecting. You're saying that your ultimate truth is, what you know to be true, and that it's not just believing, and it's exactly the opposite. It's exactly the opposite.
Jay, you basically said that the knowledge of God is stamped in our hearts.
I'm sorry, I broke up there.
You said the knowledge of God is stamped into our hearts?
Yes.
Okay. Well, if that's true, why would other people believe in other gods? I mean, I assume that your God would want to be known to everybody, and he would just instantly put his knowledge into our brains at conception. And there would be no question, and we would not be having this argument right now.
Great question. Excellent question. I would say that, again, the proof of the existence of God is revealed to all people. The same passage in Scripture that I'm referring to, Romans chapters 1 through 3, that says that the law of God is written in our consciences, also says that God has revealed himself to all people through, namely, creation, or what we would call general revelation. But here's where I was saying where sin has crept in, because
try to answer the question for us, Jay.
That's not what you said.
I am answering the question.
A variation of that question would be, why do you have the need to teach us? Why do people have to be taught God? Okay, why do kids have to be taught God? Why do you have to teach your kids God? Why do you have to be a youth minister? That's basically the question.
Point.
Okay, the point is, if the knowledge of God is stamped on our hearts, why are there people who believe in other religions, and why is there a need for Christians to teach their kids about God?
I was in the process of answering that question.
Okay.
Do you want me just to say yes?
No, I want you to answer the actual question. You start giving me Bible passages that talk about where the evidence of God is, but those people they've never been given that. You have to teach that to them. That's teaching people about God. That's not proving that God is stamped on our hearts.
But he's talking physically almost, that it's stamped within us, within our DNA. Is that what you're kind of trying to get to?
I'm saying in your conscience, in your spirit, that in your conscience, deep down in your conscience, whether you have drowned it out or not, whatever your situation is, deep down in your conscience.
Well, my conscience is a natural thing.
Okay.
Well, go ahead and explain it, Jay.
Look, I see what's going on. I know that no matter what I say is just whatever. But
no, that's not what's going on. Jay, that's not what's going on. That's not what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, because here's what's going on. I'm being asked a question, and I'm answering that question.
Okay, bring evidence to the table.
Because halfway through answering that question, because maybe it's not short enough,
No, it wasn't. It wasn't the answer to the question. I'll let you answer it. I'll let you answer it, but you weren't answering the question.
Here's the deal. Here's the deal. I love you guys, and I care about you guys, and that's the reason why I called. How do you love me? You don't even know me. Well, because
I love you, and I don't even know you. So you don't need to even present the straw man argument. Okay? You just presented two straw man arguments and not let me respond. It told me my position, okay, and you know what's going on here, but you don't. You're telling
I'm not making an argument when I say I love you. I'm just telling you.
Yeah,
look,
fine. Well, we love you. We love you too, man.
I'm just trying to share.
Why do you think we'll actually entertain the phone call?
To be true.
We could be out playing golf right now. We could be out hanging out with our kids right now. But we're entertaining the phone call, trying to help you see your own irrationality. We love you, okay?
I appreciate that. Thank you very much for trying to help me see my own irrationality. Now, I'm trying to help you see the truth of God. I don't even remember the original question, so whatever.
The original question was, if knowledge of God is stamped on our hearts, why are there people who first of all, believe in other religions, and also, why do you need to teach kids about God if the knowledge is stamped on their hearts?
First question, why, if the knowledge of God is stamped on our hearts, why are there people who believe in other religions? I believe because sin has entered the world, and because sin is in the old theological term is total depravity. It means that not every human being is as bad as he can be in total Charles Manson, but it means that everything we do has sin behind it. And because every ounce of our being has traces of sin in it, we will always choose what seems rational to us. And the man who has not submitted himself to God and who is still under the bondage of sin will always choose against God.
Okay.
And any choice, whether it be atheism, whether it be to be a Hindu, but whatever, is a choice against the one true God.
Okay. So in short, your answer is because of sin, and I'm curious, who created sin?
Sin comes from man.
And who created who created us, knowing that sin would come into play?
God did.
Okay. So is not the way that the world works today all part of God's plan? That He knew ahead of time how it all play out?
Yes.
So what's the point then? Why even try to convert people if this is all of what God wanted to do anyway? God clearly wanted people to believe in other religions. He wanted people to use their brain that He gave us. He wanted us to lack existence in God.
Well, He didn't put a yellow stripe down the people who He knew would be an atheist one day and then become a Christian when they're 37 years old. So we can't just walk up to them and say, well, there's one there. So my goal, my objective, and where I'm coming from, again, using the word of God, is I'm commanded as a Christian to share His good news with people, not just with white people or black people or Southern people, with people. The Bible says, go to the nations.
Okay.
I don't know who's going to accept. I don't know who's going to say, you know what, Jay, you're a big closed-minded idiot. Shut up and leave me alone.
Okay.
I don't know who's going to say that. I don't know who's going to say, man, that is the greatest message I've ever heard in my entire life. I want to know more. So I'm just throwing it out there. And
understood.
Here's the worldview that I come from.
Okay.
That everything, no matter how messed up the world may seem, no matter how bad things may seem, everything rests under the supreme rule of God, the one true God.
Is God all loving?
Yes.
Okay. So now, knowing that He created this system the way it would play out, and He allowed sin to come into the world, and He allowed what would come into play would be that people would believe in other religions, and there would also be people who lacked belief in a God. Those people are going to burn in hell forever. Is it all loving to create a system, knowing exactly what would happen through no fault of their own? Okay, especially let's even look at people who never have the knowledge of Jesus Christ. Okay, who live in parts of the world where they just don't ever hear about Jesus Christ, which there are parts of the world like that.
Exactly.
Is it loving to create people knowing ahead of time that they are simply destined for hell?
I would use Romans 8, 9, and 10. Really, Romans 8 and 9. Paul is writing about this very argument. Like we talked about Romans 1 through 3, where general revelation, everybody is aware of the existence of God. But Romans 8 and 9 tells us that basically goes through the scenario. Why would God do this? Why would God raise up, for example, the example Paul uses, Pharaoh? The message of Paul is, and again, I understand this is totally crazy and sounds almost contradictory, but the example is for God's own glory. And the example Paul says, will the potter will the clay say to the potter, "Why have you made me this way?" We may not understand. Well, God finds glory in all this weird stuff. An example I would use is the example of light. If every room that we ever walked in, from the time we were born to the time we died when we were 90 years old, always was light and bright, guess what? We'd never recognize the light. We'd never appreciate it. It's always there. But we recognize the light more so because of the existence of darkness.
But so you would consider your God to still be loving, even though it clearly says in Scripture, and like you're admitting just now yourself, that he specifically created these people as his vessels of wrath for the purpose of destroying us to better demonstrate his glory. And you consider that to be loving?
Yes.
Jay, I'm curious. Jay. Would you bring children into existence yourself, knowing ahead of time that you were going to have to throw them in a big fireplace, okay, so that they would burn until they were dead?
Just to show your other kids how much you love them.
Right.
Here's the problem.
Would you do that? Would you? No. Not a here's the problem. Would you do that? Yes or no?
No, I'm not God. I'm not God.
Whoa. But wait a sec. But that would be very loving, though, because you just admitted that was loving.
Yeah, because he's God.
Oh, so fine. So wouldn't God be happy that you were doing the same things he did? I mean, after all, you were made in his image.
Here's the example. We brought up sin.
I think you should really start doing that, Jay. I think you really should start having kids and throwing them in a fire and burning them to show other kids and other people how much you love them. I think it's important for you to do that.
But it's also important that you pull them out like after they burned up really bad and put them back in after they heal.
I think you really should, man.
So they have this feeling for like the rest of
their life. After all, it's loving. It's loving, man.
And that's not even eternity, man. That's only for like 90 years.
I may even take that up.
Enough, this is a Christian nation, and all of our laws are based off of the Christian doctrine. So clearly, it's going to be fine. There won't be any repercussions or anything like that.
Yeah, like fuck marshmallows. We just put kids on sticks. Have a little camp out.
The other white meat.
That's funny, Jay. Oh, come on, that's funny.
Here's the thing.
Go ahead.
Here's the thing that just, I guess, kind of upsets me is because of the existence of sin, because from the garden, and again, because we chose to sin, because
did God know we would sin a day before he created us?
Yes, he did.
Okay, so we're simply doing everything he wanted us to do. Is he all powerful?
Yes.
He had the power to make us differently and chose not to.
See, you're making a mistake here by just because what God does cannot fit into a neat, tidy little box, then there must be some kind of problem.
But you're the one who wants to put it into a box. You're the one who wants to put the labels on God like he's all loving and he's all powerful and he's eternal. The box has been created by you. We're not the ones who are creating the box. We're just going along with what you're telling us is true about God. So, like, if your God is all loving and he's all knowing and he's all powerful, then how exactly can these things be true? I mean, even like, let's look at the story of Pharaoh, for instance. It says clearly in the Bible that God intentionally hardened Pharaoh's heart against him in order to demonstrate his glory. And so, they went through all the plagues and eventually the killing of all the firstborn of all the Egyptians and all of their animals and everything, this bloodthirsty God. And that's okay because we can't put God in a box. I mean, do you see how that just can't possibly make sense, that killing the firstborn of every Egyptian because God purposely hardened the heart of one man in that country is loving in any sense?
I can see where to the natural mind it wouldn't.
But we all have natural minds.
That's all we have.
So,
given to us by God.
Why couldn't God give me a supernatural mind? Why could not God have created us with a mind that would be perfectly in sync with his mind so that these things wouldn't be a problem? I would have understanding of all of these things. Why couldn't he have done that?
My answer is, I don't know. I can't tell you. I do not know that answer.
Well, no, clearly he could have. He was all powerful.
I mean, aside from all that, why did he go through all that trouble when he's all powerful? He just snap his fingers and make us all good. I mean, why would you go through all that trouble, thousands of years of killing people, when he could snap his fingers in an instant?
Because of his own glory was a response that I gave earlier, and also because of the existence of sin, we all deserve eternal wrath. And it's only by the grace of God, that I will spend eternity in heaven with him, but also that I draw a breath, that I'm able to talk on the phone with you, that I'm able to laugh, that I'm able to watch a football game later on today and play with my kids. All that stuff is just by the grace of God. I think what we should be asking on 9/11, people are saying, man, why did all this happen? Why did God allow this to happen? I think the proper way, because of sin, is we should ask ourselves on a day like today, whatever this is, September the 9th, 2006, we should be saying, because of sin, why didn't God pour down his wrath and his judgment on us today? Because that's how serious sin is. And God punishes sin. Now, here's the problem. I love you guys, and I have a desire to see you guys accept Jesus Christ as the one true God. And I realize what's going on here is basically just asking questions from the Bible that may seem a little bit weird, and I will admit to you, man, I don't know. I cannot explain God. I can tell you that if I could explain everything about God, then guess what? He wouldn't be all that special. He wouldn't be God if my finite mind, which can't even work a VCR at times, if I could explain God, then there's nothing special about him. He's not God at all.
But why not? The universe is still special, even if we can explain it. If we can explain what a star is, what kind of gases it's composed of, what temperature it burns at, how many light years it takes for it to reach us as a visual light, then it doesn't make the star itself any less special. So why would your God have created that?
The star is not God. The star is creation.
Okay, but what you're saying is that it makes it less special, that understanding a thing makes it less special, and I'm saying that I don't think that that's true.
Okay, that's cool. But before I go, my passion is that you see, again, I know you've heard this, but when you stand before God, or right now when you look at your life and you ask yourself, by God's standard, assuming that God does exist, am I a good person? And without Jesus Christ, the answer is no matter what you do.
But what is God's standard? Burning babies and killing the firstborn of an entire nation of people and creating people for the sole purpose of going to hell? If that's his standard, then yeah, I think I'm doing a little bit better than he is, actually.
I believe God's standard is the 10 Commandments. And the 10 Commandments are so much more than...
So he himself has violated his commandments. He's a hypocrite.
If I could finish, the 10 Commandments are so much more than just...
Well, what's the point of finishing? What's the point of finishing if you say that his standards are the 10 Commandments and he's a hypocrite because he violates them? What's the point on even going any further?
Tell me how God's violated the 10 Commandments.
Murder? Thou shalt not kill?
Yeah. The literal term there is murder, and God has murdered no one. God is bound by no laws. God is the creator of the laws.
He's bound by no laws.
You just said that he has to follow the 10 Commandments, and he didn't break the 10 Commandments.
That his standard is the 10 Commandments, but he doesn't follow his own standards.
Listen, I'm getting back to the point here. God's standard of good for us is the 10 Commandments.
Which he doesn't follow.
Okay, that's cool. Here's the deal. I'm just going to pray for you guys, and I want you to know that
we'll think for
Lord
you.
Jesus Christ.
We'll think for you.
Okay, I just want you to know the Lord Jesus Christ loves you, and there will come a day.
Yeah, we used to live that, man. We used to live that. We used to live that.
Okay. Good luck on MySpace, and good luck on the Rational Response Squad, and I'll just keep praying for you guys. And,
all right, we'll keep thinking for you.
Hope you do well.
Okay,
Thanks
we'll keep thinking for you.
Bye.
Bye-bye now.
You are fucking right. Dude.
Wait, we're still recorded, man.
Oh.
Yeah, we're in the middle of a show. You would, yeah.
I was just doing what he was doing.
For those who are unaware, when we broadcast our show now, we do like 5 or 6 shows in a day. On a Saturday afternoon, we all get together, hang out in the basement in Philadelphia, and record our show. And we now broadcast that information live through our Stickcam room. It's not the greatest quality.
So awesome.
It's not a good audio quality or video quality, but you can get a little piece of us behind the scenes producing our show that then gets aired later on when you're probably listening to it right now on freethoughtmedia.com on Friday nights after Live with the Infidel Guy. And if you check out rationalresponders.com, you can get and be up to date on all of the information related to those dates that we record. So right now we've got some guys in the Stickcam room, and they've commented on the show. Let's see. Nick Poling says that was awesome. God Stole My Friend says that was great.
Well, somebody was yelling at us saying that, well, we think we're so cool for ripping on the Bible guy.
Oh, really? Oh, was there a Christian in
We
the
are
room?
cool, dude. We don't have to think that.
Shit.
Let's see.
He kept getting off topic.
Floyd is saying he agrees with us, just not that we ganged up on him.
And we get that. We get that from theists that say that they don't want to come on the show because it's unfair. But at the same time, it doesn't matter if you're talking to 10 people. If your views are correct, you're going to be able to defend them no matter how many people you're talking to. I purposefully, when I debate religion, I purposely try to find places where I am vastly outnumbered. When I have 40 Christians ganging up on me, because it's the only way it's enjoyable to me to have 40 atheists on a message board responding to one Christian. You don't get your arguments addressed. So
I don't think that was a gangbang. We were just trying to stop him from making so many points at one time, basically.
yeah, well, he'd make like 7 illogical points in a row, and then end on the 7th illogical point.
Like, how do you go from past persuasion to sin, and then to the Bible and Romans 1?
Right, he was jumping around so much.
Exactly.
Like,
I mean, and someone said in the chat, what's his face? What was it, Jason? Jason was saying, too, how do you know you're right? Well, that's the thing. That's the difference between him and us. We don't sit here and claim that we know everything for certain. He kept saying that you're so fascinated with what's going on in reality, you don't want to, look at the evidence and things like that. Well, we're not sitting here saying, we don't actually appeal to emotion and believe what we want to believe. We are open-minded enough to admit that, hey, there might actually be a God. Someone might actually come on the show and make us all Christians. He, on the other hand, has been so thoroughly against that. It's preposterous,
Right.
Well, I would have liked to have asked him what his definition of evidence is.
Right.
Because evidence is clearly something that people as a group have agreed upon is, substantial enough to be able to make a logical conclusion based on that. Like, you can't, he got saying my evidence. Well, my evidence might be, the fact that, whatever, the sky's blue today.
Right.
So
he was redefining it.
So that's the snarf widget.
But that's my evidence, and that's all that matters is because it's my evidence. But evidence in and of itself is something that has to be agreed upon by a group of people. You couldn't go into court and say, well, this is my evidence, and then the court's going to say, well, that's not evidence here. That evidence is not valid. So, my evidence is just an invalid, concept, like right there.
Right.
We've got a question in the chat room right now. In real life, do you guys get into debates with friends, acquaintances about atheism like you do on the site forums?
All the time.
Do you, Kelly?
Yeah, not so much. I don't know. I don't really talk to people except for my mom.
So all 3 of us then.
Yeah,
definitely all 3 of us. And
me,
Kelly,
definitely.
you talk to your mom about it? Is she a theist?
Yes.
Okay. So what type of beliefs does she have?
Well, she started out being really crazy fundy, but she's starting to mellow out a little bit. But it's still, and especially now that I'm living with her, so it's a little tense at times.
She knows about you being on the show?
Hell yeah.
And she is accepting of it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, my mom pretty much, she knows, I'm very open with my mom. I don't hide things about, my life and what's going on with me. So.
It's ironic, though. I see a lot. Guys are more, I don't know, maybe it's just testosterone in us. We always like to debate. When we debate, we get loud about it, I know friends and stuff like that are females, and they listen to me debate. They get so scared. Like, my dad and I'll sit down and debate, and I'll have a friend over who's not a male. And she'll be sitting there listening to the conversation. She'll get scared. She doesn't want to interject because we just get so loud and we rise above each other's voices and stuff. Right. And that's just because that's how we debate. Right. And I see that more in men than I do in women. I think that's probably why the 3 of us are probably more active in debating.
Well, I would totally debate people. I love to debate. I just don't have the opportunity. I don't have a lot of I don't have a circle of friends that I hang out with where half of them are Christian.
I wouldn't get riled up though and start.
No, I totally would.
Oh, really? Wow.
It gets to be annoying though.
It does get old. Hearing the same arguments over and over. Can somebody please send us an original argument?
I know.
Because good God, it's
beating Pascal to death.
They've had 2,000
Kelly just said, good God. Clearly she knows that God exists. She has the evidence written on her conscience.
Well,
you've been found out.
After 2,000 years, you think they come up with something new, but unfortunately, after Aquinas, that was it, man. Nothing.
Well, I'll tell you what, folks. We'll take a brief commercial break, and when we come back, we'll figure out something to do to finish out a few more minutes of the show. We will see you on the flip side.
Peace.